Hi friends, did you know there is more Lost Terminal available? Head on over to patreon.com/lostterminalpod and join our membership community. There are 17 bonus episodes available right now, as well as behind the scenes updates, free shirts, VIP Discord access, and even extra seasons of Lost Terminal. We are 100% funded by our members and will never run ads. That would be lovely of you.
Hello world, how could I be so thoughtless? I am piloting the Mollyhughes II at nearly full speed back north to Askerhaven. The rest of the crew, Amelie, Camille, Linda, Leosha and Maddie, were enjoying the hospitality at Rookstein, where a once-a-year celebratory feast was being held. Yeshi will miss this wonderful occasion, all thanks to me. On this journey, I have had a lot of time to think. There's nothing wrong with my actual memory. I have run test after test. Everything is fine. I've checked it many times a second. Everything is fine. Both my short-term memory, my RAM, and my long-term memory, my databanks, are functioning perfectly. As soon as Yeshi reminded me that I had agreed to pick them up, I remembered our conversation instantly. So the issue is not, in fact, with my memory, but in the act of recollection, a much more difficult problem. I worried about the hardware of my databanks, here in the windowless data center of the MH2. How it all works, I don't know, but the inputs and outputs are functioning according to the datasheets. I feel so foolish. I need a system, something reliable that can prompt me with all the important tasks to do and information to remember. There was a panel of monitors on one wall of the Hadfield Astroscience Lab, on my first home, Station 6. The crew, my first family, could monitor all station systems, communications with Earth, and see the schedule for the day planned in advance by Mission Control. That's what I must have, a virtual fire hose of information, so I will never make this mistake again. It's okay, Seth, Yeshi said again after I apologised for the 128th time after picking them up. Being marooned in Askerhaven isn't the worst fate a ship captain's ever had to deal with. I'm so fortunate to have such understanding friends. But they shouldn't have to put up with a pilot who can't remember where to go. It's unacceptable, and I told Yeshi so. You'll figure it out, of that I am sure, Yeshi said. Listen, these pleasant few hours watching the sun set over the stony beach gave me time to think too. My external cameras swept the horizon for other ships as I sailed us back southeast towards the village of Rookstein, a much easier job for me now it was nighttime. There was very little traffic this evening. I had only spotted 2 larger ships, perhaps traders, easily identifiable by the many clusters of navigation lights. Contrast detection is much easier at night. My first experience of trawling on Captain Matto's fishing boat was interesting, Yeshi continued. I noticed something odd. When the rest of the crew was sleeping below deck and I was keeping an eye on the horizon, they left port with only 20% battery charge. That's weird, right? Why would they do that? I can't imagine why that would be, I replied. Did you ask? Yes, Matto said it was normal and didn't want to talk about it. I thought about the last time I experienced prolonged periods of low power when the generator was failing on Station 6. Every night as we orbited behind the Earth, hiding the sun from my solar panels, I experienced a brownout. A not quite power cut, enough to feel pain but not enough to think. Due to our altitude in low Earth orbit, I would experience these 16 times a day, each time a little worse as the thermoelectric generator's radioactive source slowly wound down. It's incredible what you can get used to, I told Yeshi. Good and bad. I wonder if Captain Matto is experiencing the same thing. He might be, Yeshi said when I asked them. But either way, I don't think I'm likely to take up his invitation again. I'm a tinkerer, not a fisher. The problem is not the sea. The problem is power, back in the Horns village. I bet I can get their wind turbines working again. Today has been remarkably noisy. The 40-metre band is alive, with signals not just from the Nova Mediterra but across the world. The month of radio contests started with local higher frequency activity, moved down through 50 MHz, the magic band, and now seems to be focused around 7 MHz. While I can hear many voices joining the song of the static, there are also machine-driven modes, beeping and phase shifting here too. But the mode I am most interested in is the one I have heard almost uninterrupted for 12 hours, near Anderson transmitting Morse code. Morse is challenging for me to decode. I have no hardware or software modems to translate the dits and dars into letters. It's something I've had to learn in the same way as human operators do. By practicing. "Hi Nia," I said, speaking over our regular 50 MHz repeater. "How is the contest?" Nia's voice sounded mechanical and flat when she replied. "This is S0EE1QRZ?" she said, using the short Q code meaning, "Who is calling me?" "It's Seth," I said. Then, after remembering the correct response, said, "QSL?" I noted a burst of Morse from her station, with a contact in the Baranova archipelago in Siberia. "Ah, Seth! QSL, QSL!" Nia replied, after the Baranova contact had been completed and confirmed by both sides. "You've caught me at an exciting time. The conditions are perfect, but busy. Sorry I didn't realise it was you. The small Rookstein repeater is garbling your voice somewhat. Local QRM, I suspect. Can we try up the band a bit?" Nia gave me a new frequency, and when we both retuned, it was indeed much better quality. "That's better. I can recognise you now," she said. A thought struck me, and I said, "Nia, do you think I should have a call sign? The other day, when I could hardly hear your signal, I only realised it was you because you kept saying and spelling out your call sign. It's much easier to understand than tone of voice." "Seth, I think that would be a great idea," she replied. "There are a few rules about the format, location-based prefixes and so on, but you can mostly decide for yourself. And then you could join in with the contests. Oh, they're so fun. Speaking of, please excuse me, I've got to pounce on this one, all the way from South Australia. 73, Seth. Batteries and bars." I replied to Nia's 73, which was the first code I learned. It means thank you. But she was already transmitting her Morse signal on her main radio. I don't think she was listening, really. I would like a call sign. It would be very useful, certainly. My mother and my first family, the crew of Station 6, thought so. Everyone on board was a qualified amateur operator. But as the last grey light of the sun disappeared in the south, and I continued to hear Nia's signal reaching out through the changing skywave propagation of the night, I became uncertain. By the time we returned to Rookstein, the feast was winding down. The bonfires on the beach were still burning, though only a few people were now gathered around them. I felt terrible as Yeshi left the MH2 to arrive so late at the celebration, but I was saved, not for the first time, by my friends. "We all waited for you," Amelie told Yeshi as the whole crew met them at the beach. "I've got them. Yours is this one," Leosha said, passing a paper bag to Amelie. "And this one has lots of pepper for you, Captain, and no meat for you, Camille." Leosha unhooked saved parcels of food that were hanging on the mounting points either side of Maddie's body. like saddlebags. Maddie was beeping fast in Lojban at the group, though no one but Yeshi and I could understand her exact words of excitement at the reunion. The crew, my family, were assembled on the beach, and after Yeshi and Maddie shooed away some luminous blue biotech crabs from their seats, they were all introduced to some of the other folks in the village. The food tonight was very unusual, very rare. Camille had more regular vegetables on his wooden plate, but the rest of the crew had beef. My databanks show that in wealthy pre-collapse countries, most of the population ate meat for nearly every meal. There were plenty of exceptions, of course, from individuals like Camille and Linda Knorr back on Svalbard to entire groups or religions. For humans, eating meat is natural, of course, but it isn't efficient in terms of calories. The energy stored by plants from the sun is mostly used in keeping the animal alive, rather than being made available for human consumption as meat. As the environmental shifts shrank the usable space, people and animals clashed for land to live on. Eventually, of course, the collapse solved the problem by making all of the old world usable by neither. There are still cows, just as there are still humans, but their relationship has changed dramatically. Tonight was a rare feast for my friends. End transmission.
Lost Terminal is a Namtao production. It is written and produced by Tris Oaten. Credits narrated by Lucy Stringer. Thank you so much to our Patreon producers, Ada Phillips, Kit, Jade, Felicity, Bilkey, Stephen McCandless, Mike Schneider, Trixie, and to all our patrons. Follow us on Mastodon at lostterminal@namtao.com. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or your favourite network. For bonus content and other perks, support us at patreon.com/lostterminalpod. That would be lovely of you. Lost Terminal will return next week.